Hello, my name is Tyler Escobar, and this is my presentation for MPH 569, my field internship for the Masters in Public Health online program. I did my field internship at my place of employment, which is the Las Cruces Fire Department. Normally I work a 24-hour on, 48-hour off schedule, but in order to fulfill the requirements for this field internship, I was placed on a 40-hour-a-week schedule, and I was tasked with creating a mentorship program for the fire department. The overall goal for this program was to foster the growth of new employees and create effective team members from the ground up. So we're going to go over a little bit about the Las Cruces Fire Department, a little bit about its history, and then we're going to get into what I worked on for the 160 hours of the field internship. So this is a picture of my academy brothers and sister after our academy graduation. I'm the second to the right there from the left-hand side. The Las Cruces Fire Department provides advanced life support and fire suppression to the city of Las Cruces. We have over 120 sworn members. We started back in 1907 as a volunteer fire department, as most fire departments have. Back in 1958, we became a career department. We deliver health services to people in their homes at a very critical time when they call 911, obviously. But we don't just check for life threats and treat life threats. We also provide valuable insights and referrals for our patients for them to receive higher care. A lot of times people call 911 because they don't exactly know what to do and they don't quite know their way around the healthcare system. They don't quite know how to navigate things, and we also help them to navigate through the healthcare system in a lot of ways. We employ over 18 paramedics, so we do provide the same level of care as ambulance personnel. We just, at this point in time, do not transport. The purpose for my program is that we have an academy coming on where we are going to be employing 25 brand new fire cadets starting in August, and we've had no formal mentorship program in the past. So there is a void that has been identified. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and I was lucky enough to have the backing of administration in order to be able to fulfill the internship and provide that service to my place of employment. All right, so the goals of my program were to educate and prepare, to instill the values and preserve the tradition of the fire department, of our fire department and the fire service in general, to provide a standard for the cadets to meet whenever they come online, to encourage team development, which is very important because we work in a team-based environment here in the fire service, to increase their confidence and their morale, which in turn will increase their performance, and to create inertia. We want to create effective team members right off the bat because objects that are in motion tend to stay in motion, and it's going to continue that inertia that we create at the beginning will continue with them throughout the remainder of their careers. Alright, so let's talk about what I worked on. So I split my program up into 3 tiers. Tier 1 was based at the trainee. It included a followership training, which is basically a PowerPoint presentation that I created to be delivered to the cadets prior to them coming online that would get them in the right mindset in order to be effective probational firefighters, which means they need to be very pliable, they need to be receptive to grow and learn, and they need to know what their overall place is in the fire department. I also created a trainee handbook, which I'll talk about in just a minute, that creates the standard for the trainees, and I created an evaluation component for the mentorship program that the trainees would complete. The second tier is geared towards operation, and that's where the actual mentorship training comes. I created a mentorship training PowerPoint. I'll go over some of those points in just a minute, but basically it provides just a standard education that has not been delivered prior to the department to help them to be geared towards teaching trainees in the most appropriate fashion. I also created a policy relating to the mentorship program, and I outlined the roles, expectations, and responsibilities that the mentor has and the trainee has in relation to the program itself. I also made a committee proposal. So I created a proposal for a committee that would last over the course of a year. I also found the cost associated with that. And the third tier here is the chief officer component. I wasn't able to do a whole lot on that side because there actually is already quite a bit that's being handled at the chief officer level at the moment with regards to mentorship, but I did create some opportunities for improvement. All right, so the first thing that I worked on, this is what I worked on for about a week and a half. My first week and a half was the trainee handbook. This was a very dense handbook. It included over 85 pages of dense material that provides a standard for various skills and activities that the trainee is going to be expected to accomplish during their first year. I start off with, of course, introductory pages which explain to the mentor and to the trainee how to accomplish the completion of the book, as well as what their expectations are in completing that book. I then go into some entry-level skills, engine company skills, truck company skills, and miscellaneous skills, all that will be expected of them once they come online and they're able to hold the rank of firefighter. Each one of those skills is point-based, so it makes it very easy for the person that is grading them to evaluate their performance on those skills. And there's also a tabletop discussion section which goes over some good tabletop discussions that they can do with their crew to help improve their general fire knowledge. All right, the next section that I did was the mentorship policy. So there was no policy in the department's policy section on mentorship or on training. So what I did is I created a 3-section policy. The first of it is the administrative, or the overview of the program in general. It explains what the battalion chief's role is, what the lieutenant's role is, what the firefighter's role is, and what the trainee's role is. The next section is dedicated specifically to the field training officer, which is the senior firefighter that the lieutenant chooses to be the trainee's go-to person, or in other words, their mentor. This section outlines the FTO's roles, responsibilities, and expectations in that role. And the next section is the trainee section, and this section, very similarly, it also outlines their roles, expectations, and responsibilities. The purpose of creating a policy for this program is to solidify this program's presence in the department and make it something that has to be upheld. So this stuff can't just fizzle out. So another section that I did is I identified how lieutenants should pick the FTOs, how the mentors should be picked. I wrote it in the policy that basically the lieutenant will choose the firefighter on their crew that they feel is going to be the most appropriate person to train their new guy. And that doesn't necessarily mean the guy that's been there the longest, it just means the guy that's best able to teach that new guy. They're going to be the best mentor, the best teacher, and the best role model, really. The next section that I worked on, and this was in week 3 that I worked on the mentorship committee proposal, is I made a proposal that the department develop a mentorship committee, and I figured out how much money it was going to cost the department over the course of a year. It's going to cost the department approximately $6,000 over the course of a year, and basically what will happen is once every 2 months about 12 guys would meet up, and this would serve as a support group, and it would serve as an open forum for people to talk about how their trainees are doing and how the mentorship program itself is doing. So the next section is the mentorship training. This was included in the mentorship training PowerPoint that was delivered as a part of Tier 2, delivered to the operations in general. And this is the section that provides just the basic fundamentals of mentorship, and a little bit of training, a little bit of knowledge that people maybe might not have had prior to. Just gives them some tools for their toolbox when they're trying to teach their trainees. So the first part, and this is the most important part in the fire service, is leading by example. And what I did is I developed a four-part, very, very simple method when trying to teach a trainee a task. And it starts with you do it, they watch. Second, you do it along with them. Third, they do it, you watch. Fourth, they do the task alone. By following that four-step process, it creates confidence, it increases morale, which, of course, as we know, increases job performance. Leading by example is the most important thing that a mentor can do in the fire service. So I really drive that point home in the presentation that I created. The next section is just a little bit of a situational leadership model. I based this off of a standard situational leadership model, and I adapted it to fit the needs of the fire department and to fit the needs of the trainee to mentor relationship. So when the trainee is not confident or competent, they need clear and specific direction. And as they go through the stages, they need less direction, they need more task, more relationship, and greater responsibility load. This is the second section of that situational leadership model. So this is going to be pretty new stuff to most of the guys, but I developed it in such a fashion, and I also created training bulletins for this that would make it very easy for people to understand. The next section that I did in the mentorship training was I created some training bulletins on providing feedback. I talk a lot about how it should be done in a constructive manner. The praise sandwich is something that's done a lot in the business world. It's not something that works for the fire service, so I talk about that. I talk about how providing feedback needs to identify strengths and weaknesses. It needs to be very clear and specific. I advocate for a cause-effect model. I talk about how it needs to be very frequent and prompt, goal-oriented, not too negative or too positive, and that overall it needs to be to help them do better, not necessarily to help them feel better. And like I said, for each one of those points, the providing feedback, the situational leadership model, and the leading by example, I have a training bulletin associated with those that goes in the bathrooms posted so that people can see them on a pretty regular basis, and it's also in the presentation, so they would be pretty much submersed with that mentorship training material. The next section that I went over, and as I mentioned earlier, I didn't do too much in this section strictly because there's already quite a lot being done, is at the chief officer level. I've got my goals here to the right. Obviously, the transfer of knowledge gained through experience. We need to create clear succession planning, improve management skills, improve leadership skills, and reduce learning curves. So the department was already doing quite a bit in that section. They were bringing in a third-party leadership trainer to come in and teach upper administration and lieutenants, and they were working on succession planning paperwork, and they were already working on the creation of a rotating battalion aide system, which would train lieutenants on the battalion aide position. It's just a form of mentorship from upper administration towards online personnel. So like I said, I just created a few. This is what I worked on at the tail end of week 3 and in week 4. I just created a few areas for improvement there. My program in general has some barriers to success. It presents an increased workload, an increase in responsibilities, a change in the culture, but that can all be overcome if you look at it from a long-term perspective versus a short-term perspective. But the biggest thing that makes or breaks this program is whether it has consensus. A lack of consensus would make this program basically null and void. And that's what I worked on for 160 hours while I was on a 40-hour work week schedule. It was a very productive 160 hours. I really got a lot of material done. I highly recommend the Las Cruces Fire Department as a place for individuals to come in and perform their internship. I had a whole lot of backing, and I don't think that's just because I'm an employee. I think it's because they really appreciate higher level education. And overall, I had a really, really great experience. My Jason Smith, the deputy chief, was really, really great. And that's it. Any questions?